Hi, I'm David Orlofsky. This is the David Orlofsky Show, and welcome to our special pre-Sukkot program as we get ready for Sukkot. It says in the Torah about the Dalet Minim, the four different things that we take. V'lakachtem lachem b'yom harishon. You will take it on the first day. Say the Chazal, what do you mean the first day? It's the 15th of the month. Should have said we'll take it on the 15th of the month. And so the sages make a drasha. They learn out of this pasuk. Why is Sukkot called the first day? Because it's the first day that you have a chance to sin. You come out of Yom Kippur, and you have to build a sukkah. You have to decorate it, and you have to get your Dalet Minim, and you have to do the shopping for Yontif, and you have to do the cooking for Yontif. And this year, we have a Shabbos in between. It's even less time. You have an Erev Shabbos, a Shabbos, and then it's Erev Yontif. Wow, it's so tight. People don't have a chance to sin, so it's the first day you have a chance to sin. And I say it's just good planning. If you plan it out properly, Mistami, you'd be able to sin, even during these 4 days. And Raya Ladava is that I very often do. So there's a proof that, if you plan things, you could put up your sukkah, get your Dalet Minim, get all your food for Yontif, and still do a sin. It takes a certain determination and organization, but I think if you really put your mind to it, don't mean you can't sin. Yeah. We send away the Satan on Yom Kippur. There's no Satan on Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is a time when we are living out of this world. Remember, out of this world. And that energy propels us towards Sukkot. Because Sukkot is that time when we're half in this world and half out of this world. Now, I had students who lived most of their life like that. They were half in and half out. But the idea is that we're in walls that are regular house, but we don't have a real roof. Or for those of you watching in Chicago, roof. Yeah, we have a temporary roof. It's as if we're in this world and not in this world for a week. We're going through this process. Sukkot. Zman simchasenu. It's so happy because we're confident that we did tshuva on Yom Kippur. We're confident that we were forgiven. And now we're going to Sukkot. Zman simchasenu. We're going to celebrate. Yeah, we're going to party. That's what it's about. Simchas Beis Shoeva. He used to party in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, I share with you memories. Really memories. I went to the Hebrew Academy of Nassau County, and we had school during Chol Hamoed. The reason we had school is because they felt like there were a lot of kids who would never see a sukkah unless there was school. The school built a sukkah, and they built the sukkah that was mekubal when I was growing up. It was a metal frame with canvas sheets and these large bamboo poles on the top. And it had, it served the purpose. It was a sukkah. The wind would blow and the walls would flap, And it was usually freezing in New York at that time. And it was, in my synagogue, we also had a sukkah. People who came to Shul and Sukkahs, they'd go out, they'd make kiddush, and that was it basically. Very few people where I was growing up had a sukkah. Now, I went to a synagogue in East Meadow, which was a more Jewish neighborhood. I lived in North Merrick, which was a distinctly not Jewish neighborhood. And we were one of the very few sukkahs in North Merrick. Now, my father, who was not a sentimental fellow, part of that I write off to the fact that he was a Polish Yid, and that's how he would talk. And I remember my grandfather used to talk the same way, There's that kind of like, I don't care. It's, I may have told the story already, but there's this Polish Yid is on his deathbed. And his family's gathered around. He says, Moshe, are you here? He says, yeah. Shlomo, are you here? He says, yeah. Chaimka, are you here? He says, yeah. then who's in the store? Some people are not that emotional, you know what I mean? Yeah. This man is on his deathbed. His oldest son says, don't worry, Pop. You know, we planned the funeral. We're going to get you a beautiful hearse. We're going to get, a limousine for the family. It's going to be a beautiful affair. The second brother says, what do we need a limousine for? We all have our own cars. Get Dad a hearse and we'll drive in our cars. The third son says, what do we need a hearse? I got a station wagon, you know, I'll put down the back seat and put Dad in, take him to the cemetery. The father calls him over and says, get my pants, I'll walk. It's a different kind of an attitude. It was only 2 times that I remember my father becoming sentimental, downright emotional. The first was the day after my chasana. And I remember this. It was the first from chasana in the family. And when I say from, I mean yeshivish, you know, yeshivish one, you know. And it was beautiful. It was really very beautiful, I have to say. And my father said you have to be careful because sometimes people wait for you when you're going out, look for the chas and kala, and they rob them. So I'll take all the gifts and I'll give it to you tomorrow when you come by the house. Okay. So I took all the gifts. And the next day I come by, my kala, I'm a married man now. I remember when I got engaged, I was allowed to sit on the couch in the living room. That was the first time in my life I sat on the couch. My parents had 6 boys, you know, and we would, you know, tear the house apart. I mean, like, you know, every now and then my father would move something and find a hole in the wall. So my mother wanted one room that was an adult room that she could have people, and she fixed up the living room. She bought these nice couches. She put down carpeting. We were not allowed to walk into that room if, for necessity, you had to cut across. You didn't have enough time to walk around the entire house, which is what we usually did. There was a plastic runner going through the living room. You had to walk on the runner to get across. You couldn't do that, and I never sat on the couch. When I got engaged, my mother invited my kala into the living room, and I guess I was allowed to come with her. I sat on the couches, which between me and you were highly overrated. But in any event, you know, so I came with my kala now the first time, and my father's eyes watered, and he said, I wish my mother had lived to see this. And that was the only time that he ever mentioned it. After that, whenever he would talk about the wedding, he says, it was a madhouse. There were hundreds of people there. It was crazy. But it was that moment when he felt it. It was another time. And that's when he built his sukkah. Now, so that you appreciate this, my father was a florist. My father was an interesting fellow. He did a lot of different things, but he ended up becoming a florist. He was very creative fellow. He had a florist in a nursery. And he says, the sukkah is supposed to be the harvest festival. It's not supposed to be made out of canvas and bamboo. It's supposed to be something that's alive. So my father nailed up a wooden frame, made a wooden frame, and then he nailed trellises onto the wooden frame. If you don't know what trellises are, they're these wooden lattice-like works. He put them all around. And then he brought in boxes of cedar greens. In America, florists often decorate arrangements with cedar greens. And he got cedar greens. And he wired on the greens on the entire side and then the other side of the sukkah. So the entire sukkah was made out of cedar greens. And then for the schach, he put down some slats, and the entire schach was cedar greens. First of all, it smelled beautiful, and it looked beautiful. And he would decorate it with Indian corn, which I have not found here in Israel. It's corn that grows in different kinds of colors and things. And he would hang Indian corn, gourds. Now here in Eretz Yisrael, I have bought gourds because there's a minhag on Korah to eat gourd, and it's this gigantic, large green thing. But in America, they have these decorative gourds, which are these small things that come in different shapes and colors and gorgeous. We'd hang them from the ceiling, the Indian corn. He bought autumn leaves. He was a florist. And the entrance was covered with autumn leaves, as well as different places around the walls. And otherwise, he had dried flowers, we call them straw flowers, and he covered the outside all over with the straw flowers. And then he brought potted mums, plants, and put them around the outside of it. And they used to bring groups to come and see the sukkah. It was something that was so magnificent, just to experience. My father would go out and eat in the sukkah the whole week. He'd come home from work, my mother would say, "Do you want supper?" He goes, "I'll have it in the sukkah." He'd sit in the sukkah and he'd have it. And there was one, it was one of the first night of sukkahs, it was very cold. And I was an FBT. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, I was a fiery Baal Tshuva. I remember one of my first years, I told my father, "I'm going to sleep in the sukkah." He said to me, "You're crazy, you'll catch pneumonia." I said, "It's a mitzvah, sleep in the sukkah, I'm going to sleep in the sukkah." I took my bed out, put in the sukkah. And of course, my father was wrong. I only got bronchitis. But that was the last time I tried that trick. But, I going to sleep in the sukkah. It was freezing. I can't tell you how cold it was. Anyway, I used to sit with him out in the sukkah. And that was the only time he would wax sentimental. For some reason, sukkahs, he had these wonderful memories of sukkahs. And then he would talk about his father, and he would talk about his mother. He never talked about these things. It was only in the sukkah. There was something in the sukkah that just took it to a different place. And at some point, my father started making, he didn't call it Simchas Beis Yishoel. He said, "I make a sukkah party." He started inviting people. And it got bigger and bigger. He had to have caterers there and chafing dishes and all kinds of things going on. It was quite the happening. I've tried to imitate that in my own small way. I've never been able to duplicate it. What my parents did with that beautiful, beautiful Sukkot Shoeva, it was something that was out of the world. In fact, there's a little fun fact for you. It's not really tying into Sukkot, but into Sukkah party. I don't even know how to explain this to your generation. If you're my generation, you understand, but otherwise. There was this metzias that was called the candy store. A candy store, it wasn't dafka candy, but you go in there and buy soda. Now today, if you want to buy soda, or if you're from the Midwest, pop, soft drink, whatever you call it, yeah. I can call it soda, yeah. They didn't just get that. You'd go to the candy store. There was a soda fountain. They had a faucet that seltzer came out of, and they had syrup, and they would put the Coca-Cola syrup in, and they had the seltzer, and they mixed it up, and they gave you the drink on the spot. And these things don't exist anymore, obviously. And they had ice cream, and they had malteds, and they had all kinds of different things, in the candy store. And they had other stuff that you needed, like cigarettes, and all the important things you had. Anyway, this was a dying breed. So when I was growing up, my father found this candy store that was going out of business, and he bought the soda fountain, the whole soda fountain. He put it down into the basement, and he set it up, and he put in a compressor so that it would make seltzer. And for the Simchas Beis Shoeva, he filled up all the flavors of soda, and he had ice cream and a malted machine, and he had all the different toppings, maraschino cherries and the wet nuts and the whipped cream. One of my brothers, he used to run the soda fountain down there, and it was just something that was so spectacular. My parents were so mechabed the sukkah, mechabed sukkahs. I remember it now. It was just something that was so glorious. When I come into sukkah, so maybe next podcast we'll have a chance to see my sukkah. Yeah, but it's basically I have a little chotzer here in Eretz Yisrael. The walls are made out of stone, and I have a pergola, and we have the schach lenetzach that you roll out, the mats. And it's distinctly not my father's sukkah. There's no Indian corn, and there's no gourds, and there's no autumn leaves, and there's no potted plants, and there's no straw flowers, and there's no cedar greens. Yeah, but I feel like the piyut that we say on Yom Kippur. Ein lanu kiyar, ein lanu kanoi, ein lanu kelim, ein lanu kohen gadol. We have nothing. We have nothing. Yeah, but I have a kosher sukkah, and we decorated. My daughter Mendel is really the one at this point who's in charge of it. My eighth daughter, she's the one who's usually in charge of that. Everybody else is out of the house, and she really fills in a lot. Listen, when you're the eighth girl, you have something to live up to. You know what I mean? My seventh daughter, I named her Bat Sheva, and my eighth daughter, I was going to name her Bat Shmona, but I didn't. I went with a traditional name from one of my mother-in-law's aunts, and I had Hebraicized some of the names. I changed some of the names. My Racheli, I named it for my mother-in-law's mother. I said, I named her Rachel for your mother. She goes, her name was really Rachel. When my Miriam was born, I told my father, I said, name her for your mother. Her name was really Mariam. I couldn't get it right. So I asked, this was for Aunt Minnie, I said, what's her name? It's Mendel. I said, okay, I'm not crazy about that name, but I'm going to do it right. I told my mother-in-law, I named her Mendel for Aunt Minnie. She goes, she never liked that name. Just in case you're wondering, you will never get it right. As we say in Hebrew, ain't chance. There's no chance you're going to get it right. Anyway, but so she does a lot of decorations. And one of the decorations that is most popular, not just here in Eretz Yisrael, but also in America, are paper chains. I had somebody come to my sukkah once and goes, what is paper chains? What is paper chains? Would you hang paper chains in your house? I would definitely consider it. They're a lot of fun, When you have the little kids there who are running around making trouble, everybody likes to make paper chains, different colors, things, and make enough of them. You can hang them all over the place. Yeah, it's very, very exciting. Paper chains. And I thought it's interesting why we decorate with paper chains. And on the subject of chains, here's an interesting thing. You're supposed to aged the lulav. You're supposed to tie them together. Yeah. My son-in-law knows already because he helps me with my daled, by which I mean he gets them for me. And not that I wouldn't do it. It's just that I give off puzzle rays. I don't know why it is. One year, I bought the most expensive lulav from one of these places. Came in a closed box. I took it, the guy said to me, I took it to the Paisik said it was good, yeah? So somebody's in my house checking my lulav, he goes, I think it's puzzle. I said, it can't be, it's got a hashgacha. So Ray Meiselman, Torres Moshe, lives across the street from me, and I said, I'll bring the Ray Meiselman. So he says, you know how hard it is to find a puzzle lulav? I wanted to make rings. I was going through to try to find a puzzle lulav. It's almost impossible. Let me see. Oh yeah, that's puzzle. Ay. It's so that's why I try to keep it protected so that I have the least amount of contact with these things. It actually goes back to the fact that, as I mentioned, my father had a florist and nursery, and all the boys worked in the store except for me. He asked me if I would please not come because I evidently give off rays that kill living things. I don't know what it is. For those this is a deep cut, but there's different types of kryptonite. Everyone knows the green kryptonite that kills Superman, but there's different types. One of them is white kryptonite that only kills plant life. Evidently, I've been affected by white kryptonite. The best I can find. I mean, I have artificial plants that have died on me. I mean, just forget about it. I'm the black thumb of the family. But, but I tell them I don't like those very small kosher clocks. Kosher clocks are those little, woven things that you put onto the lulav to hold it in. And when you get the real small ones, you stick in, your hadasman and lulav and all the leaves come off. I like the wider ones, and then you have to tie them together, and you make the rings, supposed to tie them up. You're supposed to be tied up until the end of Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah. And then we take the rings off so that the lulav can flow freely. Says the Shloh, because when you unbind the lulav, it's a simcha yisera. What is the happiness involved in the free-flowing lulav? Now, so that you appreciate this, you march around with the lulav and the esrog, and you have to say the hoshanas. It's a little tricky when you're holding the lulav all tied together and the esrog and a siddur. So they make this hoshana card. I mentioned this once in Shir, and a young lady told her father, and he sent it to me from Chicago. Yeah, there's a band that you can wear around it that has the Hoshanas, so that you can read it on your arm as you're carrying it. This was a game changer for me. Anyway, but the guy behind me, who's usually much taller than me, has the art scroll Sukkah Machzer, which is 12,000 pages and weighs 52 pounds. I know, because it's hard for him to maneuver it, so he rests it on my head as we're marching around, and that's really quite challenging. And there's always somebody poking me with their lulav, especially during the I'm like, I'm ducking. It's not okay. I used to be a magician, so there's this trick, where you put a magician in a box and you stick in all these swords, and you have to be able to avoid them, So I have a little practice at this, but these lulav are coming at me from all directions. So now all I need is for you to pull off them, and now you can have it like a bullwhip. Get me left and right. Dun, 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 dun. So it's a challenge. Simcha Yisera. So I thought, the only time the Eraisa, when we say full Hallel for a week, actually 8 days, of course, Sukkot, the Chidush HaRim one year said, anyone who says, Ana Hashem, with a lot of kavanah will have all their tefillas answered. Well, you can imagine in Shul that year, Ana Hashem Aishiana, Ana Hashem Atzlichana. The place was rocking. People came to the Rebbe at the end of the year and said, I don't know, I said it with all my kavanah and I didn't get an answer. He says, it was the wrong Ana. Ana Hashem, Ana Hashem, Ki Ani Avdecha. I'm your slave. Ani Avdecha ben Hamasecha. I'm a slave. My mother was a slave. Pitachta limosiroi. You don't have to tie me up. I'm not looking to escape. I want to be a slave. I was born into slavery. I'm good at it. This is where I want to be. Yeah. If you say to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, I am your slave, I want to serve you, then we break the chains. Ulai, that's the reason that we decorated a sukkah with paper chains. It's easy to break out of. Maybe that's why after a whole week of holding the lulav and the esrog so tight, we take off the rings and let it flow. Ani avdecha ben amasecha, ani avdecha ben amasecha. I noticed that the musical episodes get higher views, so I'm going to have to do a lot more singing. Yeah, Anyway, open us up. We live Yom Kippur out of this world. And the avoda of the Kohen Gadol is so careful. You have to go like this and go like that and bring the dam here and that. When you're all done, you reach the Kodesh HaKadoshim. In the Mishkan, the Kodesh HaKadoshim was 10 amos by 10 amos. And we had the Aron that had poles that were 10 amos long. And the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur had to get in between those two poles, carrying a spoon of incense in one hand and a pan of hot coals in the other. How does he get in between the poles? Well, he could jump, but if he spills the coals or the incense or lands on the Aron, he's finished. They used to tie a rope to him in case he died. If you're good at limbo, you can go underneath. I wouldn't recommend that, especially considering that Aaron was 10 amos tall. Come little of the man, come dun, daylight come and I want to go home. Yeah, so I wouldn't suggest that. So how do you do it? So the Chazal say, because the Aron wasn't Tofes Makom, it didn't take up any space. So I had a student once asked me, why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu make the Kodesh HaKadoshim 10 amos by 10 amos? And then he put in the Aron with the poles 10 amos long. And then he had a problem how the Kohen Gadol was going to get in there, and so he made the disappearing Aron trick. Why didn't he just make the room bigger? I said, good kasha, but I'm going to slug you up. Because in the Beis HaMikdash, the room was 20 amos by 20 amos. And we put the Aron in the middle, and we stuck the poles all the way to the end, so we had the same problem. This wasn't an architectural flaw that we solved by a miracle. The reality was that the Aron is not Tofes Makom. The Aron is outside of time and space. When you reach the Beis HaMikdash and you get into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you're in a place that is beyond time and space. You are literally out of this world, where the physical and the spiritual meet. Says Yaakov Avinu, Ma noira hamakom hazeh. Look how awesome it is. Says the Baal Turim, Nora spelled backwards is Aron. It's the ark. Where that goes, that's where the noira comes down. It's the interface of Shemayim va'aretz. And so we work and we work and we work and we move out of this world. And now we go through Sukkot, where we're slowly going through the process of integrating this world and that world that we were in, that world of Yom Kippur. When we reach the end, we say, okay, we're not in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, but we take off all those rings. We're going to move beyond all limitations. We're going to be out of this world, in this world. That's the happiness of Sukkot. Sukkot, we're sitting in a building, but we're Tachas Kanfei Ashchina. It's absolutely amazing. We are having this intense experience. You have 7 weeks, Sfiras HaOmer, and it leads up to Shavuos, which is called Atzeres. And each week we focus on one of the midos, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, little Kabbalistic stuff. On Sukkot, we finish with Shmini Atzeres. It's also Atzeres, but we only have 7 days. And in every day, we have to put in an entire week of effort. And every single time, we're moving slightly beyond, past all of our limitations. That's the amazing thing about Sukkot. Sukkot is a time when there's this intensity that takes place. And that's why the Gemara describes what happened at the Beis HaMikdash on Sukkot. It says, by nightfall, the young Kohanim would light these gigantic lamps on top of the Har HaBayis, and every courtyard was lit up in Yerushalayim. It was unbelievable. And then the people would come to the Beis HaMikdash and have Simchas Beis Shoeva, and they'd party the whole night. And before dawn, they would go off and they would draw the water, and they would march it back, and they would blow the shofars, and they would sing, and they'd bring it to the Beis HaMikdash, and they would bring the Korban Tamid, they'd bring the morning offering, and then they would go off and daven Shachris, And then they would come back and they would bring the Musaf offering. And then they would go off and they would daven Musaf. And then they would go through the process, of the rest of Yontif. They would eat their Suda, and then they would learn Torah, and then they would bring the afternoon offering, and they would daven Mincha, and then they would eat another Suda, and then they would again, learn Torah. And before you know it, it was time to start the party again. And they did this day after day after day. I asked the Gemara, when did they sleep? I said, if you had to sleep, you put your head down on your friend's shoulder for a little bit. And then you went back. Understand how intense this time is? There's no sleeping during this time. There's no time to sleep. We're living life. We're out of this world. We're in this world and out of this world. The closest thing we have to being dead is sleeping. The Gemara says, sleep is 1/60th of death. If you want to experience what death is like, you go to sleep. Talking to these teenagers once, I said, what's the greatest pleasure in this world? And they said, sleep. I said, no, you're kidding me. So if you have a day off? So sure, I sleep all day. I said, you have vacation? So what do you mean? 2 months in the summer? I slept the whole time. I said, why? But you can't wait till you're dead. You'll sleep forever. So one of them said, no, because I'll never have the pleasure of waking up and going back to bed. But if every now and then I could open up the cover and say, everything's still here, close it, turn it over, go back to sleep, I'm fine. We lived Yom Kippur, we were out of this world, we were like Malachim. Malachim don't sleep. We're out of this world. Angels. And then we go into the Sukkah. We're half in and half out. We want to live life, we don't want to sleep it away. Little children don't want to go to sleep. No, I don't want to go to sleep. No, I don't want to go to sleep. You have to drag them off to their beds. I don't want to go to sleep. I'm going to miss something. Get to be my age? Someone sent me a cartoon once. Sometimes in a bar they have what's called happy hour. Where the drinks are half price or whatever it is. He says, when you get to be my age, happy hour is a nap. Oh, yeah. They were just sleeping their life away. Not in Sukkot. Sukkot is no time to sleep. We have to live life. To live it to the fullest. You have to enjoy everything. Eventually we can go back into our house and go back to our everyday life and live things the way that we need to. But until then, live life to the extreme, live life to the max. That's what Sukkot is. Ani avdecha ben amasecha pitachta lemoiseroi. Take off my chains. Unshackle me. Set me free. I could serve you so much better. Take off these ropes, take off these chains. I'm not going anywhere. I want to serve you. I want to be here for you. I want to do for you. Let's do it together. We're in the Sukkah. Eretz Yisrael, you can be in a mitzvah that completely surrounds you. When you go to the mikveh, and I made an oblique reference to the mikveh experience, somebody wrote me and said, you never finished that. Don't worry, we're not even done with our first year yet. We got more to talk about. Going to the mikveh completely encases you. When you go into the Sukkah, it completely surrounds you. It's a mitzvah that you can live in that becomes part of you. So that's it. Go build your sukkah. Hang your paper chains. Make your sukkah as beautiful as you possibly can. Here in Eretz Yisrael, I do sleep in the sukkah. Sometimes I have the opposite problem. It's too hot to sleep in the sukkah. I have a friend of mine who married a girl from Miami. They have air conditioning in the sukkah. He says, otherwise you can't stay there because the mitzvah is put from the sukkah. If you're in pain, you can't stay there. So if it's too cold or it's raining or it's too hot, you can't stay there. Usually, though, it's beautiful. I sleep. I have my regular sukkah, then I have my little sleeping sukkah. I have the mirpeset, my little porch off of one of the bedrooms. It's the wall. It's 10 tefachim is high enough. So I just lay out the schach on top of it, and I crawl into it. And I just sleep there. So nice. If you wake up in the morning too fast, you bang your head into the schach. Okay, but so nice just to be surrounded. So we'll talk more about this next week when we talk about our Sukkah. I have a special Sukkah's podcast. And until then, if you want to find out more about the show or this episode, or make a comment, or find about upcoming events, or book an upcoming event, or sponsor an episode or anything, you know the drill. You go to RabbiOrlofsky.com, and it's all there waiting for you. And we should all have a beautiful Yontif. This is David Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.